What's up, everyone? In today's video, I would like to share a story with you about how I got lost in thought and got my way through it. I've actually been procrastinating when it came to creating this video because it requires me to be more vulnerable than usual, share a little bit more than usual, and of course, that's gonna come with some resistance when being vulnerable on the internet. But, this message came to me and it was just, if this helps one person, then I'm good. As long as it helps one person. I feel like if I had heard this from someone before going through what I went through, then it would feel better. I would have more trust in myself. I'd feel more at peace, and I would be far more allowing with the universe. So I found myself lost in thought. Now, this happened a while ago, towards the end of September and the beginning of October, because October 1st was a full moon, and there I felt a very powerful transformation that night of October 1st. Those couple of days before that, I wasn't very satisfied with where I was going with my plans. I felt like I didn't have motivation. I wasn't creating videos, I wasn't creating in general, and I thought that there was something wrong. I couldn't really even envision my future as I used to. It kind of lost its pizzazz, it lost its power with me, truthfully. So I had a dream one night, and many times, my dreams are very healing for me. When I find that I am suppressing something in my outer world, in my conscious waking state, my dreams tend to help me heal that. And what happened was I had a dream. And when I woke up, that dream kind of continued on. It brought something out. It helped me realize what I was suppressing. And so after that, I found myself daydreaming. This is when I found myself, you would say, lost in thought, I was truly living in my mind. And I remember I would experience this when I was younger. When I was younger, there would be periods of times where I would daydream for a very long time. I feel like I use it as a way to escape my reality, because my reality may have been a bit boring. It was not exciting. So I would create stories and in my mind and add on and add characters and things like that. So as I grew older, I assumed that I had grown out of that, but it came back and I was in shock. I was also resistant towards it, but those thoughts, those ideas, those stories that I was creating in my mind, it kept pulling me in. Those thoughts, they wanted to stay alive, no matter how much I resisted. And so I found myself daydreaming consistently for a couple of days. I would do my daily, routines, but it wasn't normal. Usually I would go work out, I wasn't working out. I was eating less, but not in a way where I felt like I was starving myself. I feel like my body was naturally fasting because before this happened, I was not eating well. I was being very responsible with my eating habits. So I feel like my body was, in a way, it started to naturally heal itself. And so I wasn't hungry, so I just allowed that to be. I drank water and I ate when I needed to, but it was just small amounts, And I allowed my mind to go. There would be times where I would go and I would read, I would go and I would listen to music, but still those thoughts, it would come. So what happened was I allowed it to be there, because it's like, what can I do? You know, there was a point where it was the nighttime and I was just like, I can't even practice being in the present moment, like being here, because I feel like these thoughts, they're so enticing in a way. It was the feeling that I had when I was younger, where I felt like my thoughts in my head, the ideas in my head were better than my own present reality. And that's where I was being resistant, because it went opposite of everything I had ever practiced, everything I had ever read, everything I had ever awakened to, and I didn't understand. So as the days went by, what I did was, each and every time I found myself present, I took kind of like a conscious breath to bring myself to the present moment, to realize that I'm here and I'm present. I would remind myself that the story in my mind, the characters in my mind, they're not real. They're not real. I had to remind myself of that. And as I became more and more conscious, what I realized that I was actually seeing my own insecurities, my own fears, but also my own dreams and my biggest goals. They were all being created in this daydream. And I sat back and I was like, now I can actually see right in front of me what it is that I need to focus on, what I had suppressed, what I was too afraid to even confront. You know, many times when we are not conscious of our insecurities and our fears and things like that, our body will show us. Our body will reveal that to us. And during this period, that's exactly what happened. My mind and my body, it began to heal itself. So I continued on. I allowed the daydreams to happen. And I started to realize that in a world in my mind where I can create anything I wanted, I still had limitations, even in that world in my mind. So I was like, how can I do that in the real world if I can't fix it in my mind? So I started to switch it around. I just started to play with it. Why not, right? Because I was stuck in this compulsive thinking of being in this made-up world in my mind. I might as well make it however I want to be until I can get out of it. So I started to change it up. I started to see myself as a person that I wanted to be. Super chill, super genuine, and I was basically myself, but like more of myself in the daydream. I was living in a place where I've always wanted to live, and I started to change the people that I was around. I was realizing that what I was going through in my conscious life, I had taken it into my world, and I started to switch it. Now, what stood out the most was the feeling that I got in these daydreams. And the feeling that I got, they started to turn into more of like visualizations. I took this moment where I felt like these thoughts were using me, and then I transformed it to where I was using the thought. And I was using the thought to create a world inside of me so that I can then manifest that into my own world, if that makes sense to you. So I started to feel everything I ever wanted be alive within me. I started to watch myself transcend my fears, my insecurities, my doubts. I watched myself in my mind. I did it. All while my body, it was healing itself. My mind was healing itself. I would smile more. I would laugh more. And slowly, I started to become more present to this moment. I started to get back that feeling that I once had, that feeling that I have right now in this moment. So So I ended up on October 1st, it ended up coming to October 1st. I couldn't sleep that night. That was the night of the full moon. You know, October is the month of release, right? We're releasing everything. On that night, I could not sleep. The other nights, you know, I could kind of sleep, but this night I think I slept like 2 hours that night. But that night, I started to release everything I needed to release. And the people I needed to release, the things, the concepts, the ideas, it was crazy. And this was all because during this time, I chose to surrender and be still to whatever was happening. And I knew that I would eventually get out of this. In my mind, I knew I would eventually get out of it, but I didn't know when. But October 1st was incredibly intense, incredibly healing, and I woke up so free. I woke up with all these bright ideas and I felt more of me. And I laughed because I went through so many emotions during that time. I was so unhappy. I didn't know how I was gonna get out of this and get out of it. And then I realized why it all happened. You know, when we progress, we end up regressing. So in much of my practice, I've always practiced, you know, observing thought. I've always practiced feeling your inner body, taking conscious breaths so I could be here and present. But life, it took me to the complete opposite of that so that I can get back to where I was in a more powerful way, in a deeper way. It was much deeper. Even right now to this moment, it's incredibly deep. And so after October 1st, it gradually got better. It gradually got better. And I thought about sharing the story then, and I was like, heck no, like I'm not going to share this story. And then after a while, I was like, maybe I should share, you know? I don't think the details to what was happening in my mind was important. What's more important is me sharing with you how the mind and the body have the ability to heal itself in many ways, you know? This isn't a message for you to not go and find professional help if you ever feel that you need it. But this is just a story that I wanted to share with you in hopes that you can find that sense of peace and trust within you, within your own consciousness, and realize your own connectedness with being, where you are already who you are. You are already whole and complete. I realized that transformation, it's more of a realization. You don't have to do anything. Transformation isn't homework that you need to take home and you need to try so hard to do. Transformation is letting go and realizing that you already are. And when you do that, it naturally happens. Your state of being changes, and then your external world, your outer world, then corresponds with your state of being. When it comes to visualizations, the visuals aren't as important as the feeling. Don't get attached to that visual in your mind. It's really just like stepping stones to help you feel that existence already within you. That's what happened to me. I felt it already within me, and I let go of those stories in my mind, the ideas in my mind that led me to that feeling. And even right now, I can immediately bring up that feeling. That's why many times in meditations, guided meditations, you'll hear people talking about following a light, looking at a light. I know for me, those meditations never really worked. It was always the meditations that kept me very still and helped me to feel. But I realized the power in that as well. And I realized why people do that because of what happened to me a couple weeks ago, what I've experienced a couple weeks ago. So, you know, my passion is to share my experiences throughout my own spiritual awakening, to share with you how I observe thought. In those moments when I was finally conscious, I was observing them. I wasn't living in them. I wasn't absorbed in them, attached to them, or identified with them. I started to observe them and I was like, wow. I understood, I was shown once again the power of thought, but also the power of my own being to come out of that, to use something that I thought had control of me, and I took control of it. So I do hope that this video touched someone. And I know that it exists, something exists where there are people who like, I don't know what the term is, but like daydream and can't stop daydreaming. I actually looked that up. I almost thought that that was me, if I'm going to be honest, and I was just like, I felt like I had the tools enough to be able to transcend that, but I was like, why is this coming up again? And I looked it up, and I know that there are people out there that happens to them, you know? And I'm not saying that this video is going to be a cure per se for anyone who has ever gone through that, who's ever dealing with that, because sometimes people take that as a joke, you know, like, oh, you're a chronic daydreamer, you daydream all day. Like, nah, fam, like, no, like that happens, and it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Like, you can go throughout your day and be in your head and live in your own world, creating a whole world that is not this one. And then when you come back to this one, you're kind of like sad because you're like, it's not as cool as the one in my mind, you know? So whenever you find yourself back in the present moment, remind yourself to be rooted here in this moment. This moment is everything. The present moment is everything. Feel your inner body. That's that energy that you feel throughout your body. Take a conscious breath, follow your breath, and find moments for no thought. Because when you're in those moments of no thought, that is when you are completely free. That is when you aren't this name where I am not Morsi, I am not this person, I am not a person who puts out YouTube videos. I just am. And that's powerful. That gives room for consciousness to realize itself, and that's what I did. So I think this video went on long enough. I hope you got out a little something from this. It took a while for me to be vulnerable with this. So yeah, so my name is Morsi. If you enjoyed these videos, check out the 2 on the screen. And as always, live with effortless ease. Life is guiding you. Life is effortless. It's going to be effortless as long as you allow it to be effortless. Until next time, peace.